Hello. Welcome. It's Monday Market 15, the 15-minute show that takes about 30 minutes. My name is Rob Morales with the hottie from Morristown herself, my co-host and the esteemed Miss Ashley Miller.
Hello, everyone.
She is back, and we're back in action.
Spunky Monday.
It's a spunky Monday. So Ashley cut her hair, and I was enthralled. I'm like, hello, howdy.
He's lying, actually. This is a wig. It legit is.
Still a nice wig, but
thank you.
But it's still it brings out the best in you. I think it brings out something very different, very special.
My kids hate it. They're like, "That's not you, Mom." I'm like, "Dude, I had short hair when you guys were little, and then it was long. It's always been fake, so there's that." No, so I got this new fun wig, and I'm kind of loving it. I feel like I'm 21.
It's very fun. You know, I don't mean to bring it up here, but isn't that a sign that you're getting older when you cut your hair shorter because it gets shorter? Is that because by the time you get to retirement age, it's just a crop top, and you're like, I don't care about hair.
I hollered at my mom the other day because she had short hair, and she just did this grandma cut. Well, we're not allowed to call her grandma; we have to call her Nani. I'm like, you literally just became a grandma with that haircut. And she's like, oh, me. No, the boys called me Karen. With his hair.
Oh, boy.
That was fun.
You're only a Karen if you act like a Karen. So.
Exactly, and I'm so not a Karen.
But we're not here to talk about Karens. We're here to talk about the housing market and the things we got going on here in Phoenix, Arizona. We'll do that intro one more time. Here in Phoenix, Arizona, we got Ashley Miller here. Great American Time. All right, get out of there.
Yes.
Anyway, so we come at you every Monday talking about the Phoenix housing market, kind of what's going on and what's happening in our lives a little bit too, and kind of bring you a little real world. Bringing the numbers and the statistics to the real world of Ashley Miller, which is full of gummy bears, apparently.
It is full of gummy bears and sour gummy worms, and there's that. Boy. But no, I just recently, literally had lunch before this with a lender, my friend Matt, and we were talking about the market and how it was going and what people were doing, and the conversation led to why people are not buying. Yeah. So we broke down the math a little bit. So it was okay, you go to rent a home, you have to your first month's down, your last month's, your security deposit, maybe a pet deposit. There's all these deposits, right? At the end of it, you're probably around, depending where you're renting, I don't know, $5-7 grand. Why aren't they buying? And then you're renting a place that's probably $2,700 a month. But if you were to buy a place, your mortgage would be around maybe $2,200 a month, and your credit's probably decent if you're able to rent. So where are we? What is the loss? And my first thought process was, here's mine.
But we're talking about this because the rental market's been pretty hot lately, and I think that's a topic of conversation that's been surfacing.
I feel like it's fear of commitment. And we're not talking about relationships. The flexibility of being able to leave when you want. Again, fear of commitment.
Not relationship.
But my concern is when you rent, there is a flexibility. They have the ability to change your rent. When you buy a house, you're locked in.
That's such a loaded question because it's how do you quantify or how do you even explain somebody's situation? And it depends on price point, depends on so many things. It's why people choose to rent versus buy. That's one question. And then are they able to? It's just we're in a situation where it's hard to even purchase right now. And depends on if you live here, if you've lived here, if you're a native almost and you've been here, a good 10, 20 years, it's really hard to buy right now. If you're at the median wages for the area in Phoenix, it's crazy.
It is pretty crazy. Thinking that I've grown up here, so I have my 20-year reunion on Saturday.
Getting old.
So old.
You look young as shit, so that's still a good thing.
The house that my folks bought when I was a kid, they bought it for $30,000, just sold for almost $500, which I brought this up before. But I'm going to go back to the rent versus buying, so the $2,700 versus the $2,200. Yeah. A few of the things that have come up are new hot water heater. And you have to calculate the expenses that are going to come that your landlord typically takes care of that you would have to potentially take care of. And we talked about this last week. So how do we understand that? So my thought process is we purchase a home, low interest rate. We get to have the self gratification of owning our own home. Like that's pretty like doubtful. And with the expenses, we just have to calculate them correctly and be prepared for them.
Yeah, and if you're watching us right now, give us some insight on what you're going through and what you're seeing in the rental market. If you're renting right now, why haven't you moved over to purchasing? And if you own right now, is that something that you're considering too, selling and then renting too? Because I think that's another thing people are considering too.
Yeah, no, I'm very curious because there's so many things that go into it, and with purchasing a home, it's scary. Oh gosh, it's so scary. It's like you're like closing your eyes and you're just jumping. But with that being said, there's so many financial benefits to it long term.
Yeah.
Equity gain. Like if you bought a house this year, you know it's going to constantly increase. You're going to have equity in your property, which will react the expenses you have to pay for like hot water heater, pool, or whatever the case may be. So are we prepared? Are we preparing? And then I say people, I don't mean to call you guys people, but we are people. I feel like our economy or our society is not educating everyone out there on the different resources that we have to purchase a home. Well,
and you talked about it already. I mean, as far as renting goes, there's a tremendous amount of flexibility. There is less accountability towards a house. I mean, you can, if the water heater goes out, then you don't have to replace it. That's on the landlord, but you're also paying about, I would say, and this is just rough numbers, between $400 to $600 more a month from last year. Right. So if anything, I would bet, and again, if anybody's watching right now, if you're in a rental or in a lease, I'm sure your landlord's wanting to kick you out or end that lease, because there are limits as far as what they can charge you year over year.
Too.
There's limits to what they can charge you, but then if they get a new tenant, they can actually change it to the market rate. So if you're paying $1,700, they can't just go and blatantly charge you $22,000, which is about average for a 3-bedroom home right now. They can't just blatantly do that, but they can end your lease, kick you out, and then find somebody for a new tenant.
When you rent, it's 100% investment, and I've said this probably so many times: 100% investment in somebody else's profit.
Correct.
When we purchase, especially in this economic situation we're in. We're profiting. We've showed the numbers week after week after week. 23%, 24%. I think we're at like 33% in profit right now. So if you bought a house, okay, so what is it?
So this is basically we're kind of getting into an investment home discussion where people are buying homes that weren't necessarily buying them to move into them; they were buying them to rent. And this article really talks about building to rent. So there's a lot of home builders who are building with the intention to rent them out. And I believe it's apartment complexes predominantly, but there are single family residences out there. And so with the number of competition and prices going up, people are just shifting over to renting because they just can't compete. They can't, their minimal down payment. Most of the first time home buyers barely have 3, if they do even have 5% to put down on a home, but they're being outbid by people from wherever they're being outbid from with cash and over asking. There's very little that people have, and they're struggling just as a first time home buyer. So this article really talks about the ROI on some of the stuff. It's about 8% to build and to rent out. That investor is gaining on there.
So as I looked down at my computer, there was a statement here that says, well, it's true that you aren't building equity with monthly rent payments. No. Not all of the cost of home ownership will go towards building equity, which is true, what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So owning a home, replacing your air conditioning is probably not going to go towards your equity. But in the long term, when you go to sell it, 10 years from now, it actually is going to play a part in that.
I think it plays into people's decision making, especially if they're buying. Like, okay, again, I bought a house just like 2 weeks ago. And oh my God, I'm like, there's a part of me that got in there. I was excited. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to do all these repairs and fixes. Do it myself. And I'm like, you should see my hands right now. And right off the top, it's about $26,000. Right off the top. Air conditioner, just overpriced unit, overpriced labor, everything is just in there. It's difficult, And then on top of the roof itself was about $12,000. And I've had to buy tools and everything else just to replace the back patio because those are dry rotted out.
Tools are an investment.
Yes.
They are. Tools are an investment.
But again, just right off the top, $25,000, and that was after our down payment. We put 10% down, and it just feels very, very heavy at this point. Purchasing it. Do I regret it? No, because I mean, the home is beautiful.
No.
As far as the views and just the terms of home ownership. Again, this is my fifth home, I think, in my lifetime. But it's just nice to purchase a home. I don't own 5 homes. I've just owned over time.
Yeah.
So it is a nice feeling. But damn, the money's just like out the door.
Shit. No, I know.
And so that would lead somebody to be inclined to rent and be like, hey, shit, I don't want to incur $75,000 in costs because it was the down payment plus all these repairs, and we're not done yet. That's just the basic stuff. We're not even done with the aesthetic stuff.
Are you trying to convince him not to buy a house right now?
No. Again, if you guys have any comments or questions based on the stuff you got going on as far as renting and kind of that decision, go ahead and put those in there. But
yeah, it is a really hard decision.
Yeah,
it is. It's one of those battles. Like, so we always battle our brains. I feel like this is like a relationship show. So we battle our minds and our hearts, right?
Yeah.
Our hearts say we want to go in, we want to purchase a home, we want to create that. There's a difference between a house and a home, right? We want to create a home.
Yeah.
For our families, for future generations, whatever your story is. But some of us just want to have a house, a place where that's convenient, it's easy, just get through it. You don't have to worry about all of the commitment that goes into it. Somebody else is going to take care of all your bullshit. Let's call it that. Air conditioning.
Yeah. Well, it goes to this article too. It's just like people are wanting to go out there and purchase homes, but they're faced with competition. Homes are still selling in a week. So if you read this article, this is Wall Street Journal. If you read this article, our active listings have increased about 22% at the end of October, but that just means houses were selling in 3 days to 7 days. They're still selling fast. In an average market, and I've talked to people who are selling. I mean, 6-7 years ago, houses were selling like in 2 months, and that was pretty quick. But when they're selling in 7 days, there's still heavy competition. There's still a lot of things out there, and it's still pushing people to rent, which is again, I think, frustrating for those first-time home buyers, for those people with little to no down payment. Like VA's no down payment loan,
right.
USDA's no down payment loan. FHA, I think, it is a 3.5, but I think there's programs that do that. And I think there's a 3% conventional program that people can tap into.
I want to go back to VA, and I think we brought this up last week, and we're going to bring a lender on next week about VA. So I was actually really intrigued, because my son's going in, he's in the ROTC Junior Air Force.
I did see that. Yeah, congratulations.
And thank you. It's super exciting, super scary. It's super scary. A lot of the vets, they have no idea about their benefits. And I'm just reiterating myself multiple times, I feel like over and over again, that if a VA does not, like anybody who's been in the military, active service, or is retired, a lot of VAs they're retired don't know that they still have those benefits. So I was talking to Leanne Losey, and I am going to tout her. She's like such an amazing lender. She works for Fairway Mortgage, and I just adore her to pieces. I was on the phone with her speaking about one of my friends who wanted to get a VA loan. Yeah. And some of the knowledge I learned just by picking up the phone. And I was like, I had no idea. There's certain rules. And she reiterated the same thing. She's like, Ash, people don't understand how many benefits they have with VA. Yeah. No idea. And then there's also going back to the other loan programs like DPA, low income. There are so many programs out there for low income for people. And when I say low income, I don't mean like you're poor. Like when I say low income, that could be, they have guidelines. They have tiers. So,
I think you mean like more cash strapped, not having enough for a down payment.
Right. So like you're spending all your monies on your kids' sports and schools and private school or I don't know, whatever you're spending your money on. Cash strapped is a better word. And we're doing the best we can, but we're still financially stable. And financially stable is amazing. And if we don't have enough money to put down, there are programs out there for that. We have so much potential. And especially with what's happening right now, gosh, if we have to continue educating. And that's why I keep bringing this up week after week after week. And I feel like I'm like a broken record, but for the sake of it, like,
you're a broken record.
I want to educate people. Like, there's so much potential and possibility out there for those people who think that they still have to pay $2,700 to rent a place, and then they can buy a place with no money down, and then their payment's going to go down. And
I understand that part. The hard part is having a seller accept that, because a seller, whoever's selling the home, is going to want the least amount of aggravation, the least amount of weight. U.S. Air Force, least amount of weight, and then obviously the most amount of profit. So I mean, I want to say there's a few sellers out there that really care about your situation, but I will say if they're going to make 10, 15, 20,000 more to go with an investor, they kind of excuse your situation. They say, you may have a handicap, whatever, or you may be in a situation wherever. But, sometimes sellers just see profit over those things that really have meaning behind them, which is unfortunate. But, on the selling side, you always have to do what's best for your client.
100%. Absolutely. I do feel like we're about to enter into a space where we're going to have a lot of homes that are going to be available with a little bit more of disparity that might be more accepting to some of these offers. What do you think?
I don't know. What are you saying?
Well, what I'm saying is with, Zillow dropping all those homes and with all the forbearances and foreclosures, I mean, we're looking at, I believe, from what I've been researching, there should be approximately about 7,000 more homes that are going to be readily available that are going to be more lenient on offers. You're
talking about the Phoenix market?
I'm sorry. I apologize. In the Phoenix market. Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't looked at those numbers quite yet, but, we will talk about kind of the forbearances in a little bit. More national numbers, but still, it's something to kind of talk about. Just to kind of finish off our rent conversation, though, we're looking at, and this is a very simple chart you can kind of follow. Let me get Ashley out of the way. This is $1 per square foot since 2007. Since, our crash back in 2008-9, our housing crash, you can kind of see rental rates have not gone up significantly since then. That little blip in our housing market, I should say little, that big blip in our housing market really didn't affect our rental rates really all too much. But in the last 5 to 6 years, you can just see this just parabolic incline in rental rates, and they're not going anywhere. It just continues up. And unfortunately, if you're not in a position to buy or push for a purchase, then you're going to be subject to these rental rate increases.
But I don't like the word that you just used. If you're not in a position to buy, I feel like a lot of people think they aren't when they really are.
Well, they should explore, especially if they qualify for a rental, because people are being very picky about who they rent to right now. Yeah. If you're in even if you're in a moderate credit score position, you don't think so, I think you should explore it to at least know your options.
Well, I feel like not to call it Mark Taylor, like apartment complex, like they own like everything. I feel like Mark Taylor is harder to get approved to rent than like FHA. Or, I mean, there's so many other things. Like, I feel like renting is so much more, what is the word I'm looking for? Strict than purchasing a home. Not to say that our purchasing.
Well, and I believe because the government gets involved in a lot of, free market, I believe they're going to make guidelines a little bit easier to obtain home ownership. And stretch out things like a 40-year mortgage. I keep hearing 40-year mortgage everywhere.
I haven't heard that yet.
Yeah, I mean, like you'll never pay off your house.
Well,
but most people
you'll never pay off your house if you're renting.
Correct. That's even yes.
Bam.
She got me there. But to get into the housing market specifically, you can kind of see we've been following this number every week. Like we go back here, the market index. The market index is still high. Demand index is still high. Green does not mean good. Green just means high demand. Green on the supply side just means low supply. So we don't get into a balanced market until we get to the yellow part, and we're still here. We're still at this market index of very high demand. As we head into like more of a lull season, I anticipate, and again, this is just a guess, educated guess based on what we see. I do see the market slowing down a little bit today, only because of the holiday and inflation.
Jinx. Well, actually, you stole the word out of my mouth, so I called Jinx before.
I ripped her thunder.
Stole it.
But I do see, prices increasing after the holiday for a while. So if you're an investor looking for a flip, I would say, make those moves right now as things are slowing a little bit. And slowing a little bit means, maybe negotiating a little bit more with the seller. You're still selling a house in 2 weeks time, 18 days on average.
One example would be, I was talking to a realtor earlier today, and he's putting an offer in. In the offer, it said, we will only accept offers with an appraisal waiver. So they had to waive the appraisal.
No.
And he put an offer in with an appraisal in there. And he's like, I'm not waiving the appraisal. You will never forget me. And he's like, just put in the offer. So if they tell you no, so...
I would still, yes. I would say still put in the offer.
Right? Because if we always followed all the no's, where would we be?
So I will tell you, we had an accepted offer last week. I emailed Ashley about it, and we got an accepted offer in Tucson. We were the third. We were the third offer, but we were the backup.
Yep.
The other two fell out. One I guess decided to walk away. The second one held on to it for a minute, but then my guy got it.
Yeah.
I was just pushy too. I mean, that was part of it too.
You have to be. You have to be pushy. So when they
a lot of follow up on that.
This is a great advice. So finding the right real estate agent that will fight for you when they say, no, we will not accept any offer with a contingency or whatever. Put in the offer. They have to read all the offers.
Yeah, they have to present. So there's a line item in the listing agreement that if there is a written offer submitted, that they do have to provide it.
They have to provide it, even if it doesn't follow within the guidelines. So sometimes real estate agents, not being you, will say, we will only accept offers based on these line items. Oh. Well, guess what? Even if your realtor, hopefully it's rubber, puts it in and you don't follow those 3 points, they have to present it. They have to present it.
Yes.
And guess what? Like you said,
and
you guys did.
Yeah.
The other two fell out, and guess what?
You
guys got it.
Yeah, and then there's a thing with the agents to ensure that it was presented is to have the rejection sign at the bottom. Be insistent about that. So if you're unsure as an agent, if you're an agent out there working with a client, they're like, I don't know if you even saw my offer. Ask for that offer to be rejected. Ask for the seller to sign off on the rejection.
And that's how you can ensure that they're actually viewing it, and then the actual seller
saw it at least.
Yeah, saw it and signing off on it.
It's
super important.
I mean, I would still get that rejection and then submit another offer as a backup. Oh, yeah. Because after they reject it, that's dead in the water. So just submit that other offer. Talk to your agent about that. But the last piece, we're about 5 minutes away from the end. Can you believe it just goes by so quick?
I mean. Yes, but no.
So last piece of it, I did share some stuff with Ashley this weekend. The Board of Directors of the Federal Reserve issued out their November financial stability report. It does talk about housing in here a little bit, so I did want to highlight a couple of those pieces that are in here. So it talks about the forbearance program. You can see on here, borrowers are still in forbearance are vulnerable to increased payments associated with the forbearance programs. Basically, there's at the bottom here, you can see that as of September 21st, there's about 1.5 million residential properties in forbearance.
And that's nationwide.
Yeah, this is national. So 1.5 million, it sounds like a lot, but it's really a small segment, a very, very small segment of our housing market. And the article does, the PDF does go on to explain that even if all those properties, and you can read it here, even if all those properties came on market today, because if you're following, whatever YouTuber or whatever, and they're waiting for the housing crash because of the forbearances, because of the foreclosures.
I feel like everyone's waiting for that. It's not going to happen.
Basically, what this is saying, again, if you believe in the Federal Reserve, if you're a conspiracy theorist, then you believe whatever you want. But it's basically saying if all those properties came on market today, it would only give about 2 to 3 months supply, and that would just be quickly eaten up, and we would go back to where we're at now, which wouldn't here at this line would not be enough to cause aggregate house prices. So if you're waiting for that housing crash, chances are it's not going to be here, unfortunately.
I want to talk about before we go some new things that are about to happen. So Douglas Ranch.
Oh, let me bring that up. I got
Yes,
that there.
please.
Boom, right there.
So this was, this right here is so intriguing. And I always said this. I was like, gosh, when is Arizona going to connect to California and connect to Vegas? Because you know that drive, it's like, wah, wah.
It is a little dry, yeah.
So this is new, and this is going to be super amazing. I'm curious though. So it's projected, like it says, 30 to 60 billion in economic impact from Vegas, California, Southern California, but how there's no trajectory on it. There's no timeline.
I mean,
what are we looking at? Are we going to do it from like section to section to section? Because when you're driving to both places, you always see you're like, who the hell lives out here? When you see that little tiny town that has like 10 houses, and they're like, where do they grocery shop? Does Uber Eats deliver? Do they have like grocery delivery stores? Which actually I don't.
If you're watching us from Buckeye, these are questions we're asking.
No, but I don't use any of these. I don't use Uber Eats or grocery delivery. But I'm just curious. Like, I want to live close to a grocery store. Like when I have to run there real quick to get something. But who lives out there?
I would say transients, people that have family that cuts about an hour drive. If you're like on the East Valley, that cuts an hour drive to the West Valley, which, it's what, a 5-hour drive to LA, 5.5 hour drive,
to LA,
5.5 to San Diego, because you have to cut back to I-8,
8 and through Maricopa.
But I mean, whoever wants to live out in Buckeye, there's some good news. I mean, I think it's just an land acquisition at this point, and then the whatever state approval has happened. So
I'm doing math real quick.
It could take a couple years, I would say, before those houses become available. No, it's going to be.
So we have, it says, so in 2020, the U.S. Census, the population is...
She's bringing it up.
No, I'm going to. 331,449,281 divided by, what did it say?
I have no idea.
Bring it back up.
Oh, am I going back?
Oh, 1.5 million.
Oh, man. Hold on, let me bring it up again. Where'd you get 1.5 million from?
Because it said, that was the other article.
You're mixing articles. People are going to lose faith in us.
Anyway, the point is, what I was saying, because you were talking about the population, there's only 1.5 left in homes, but then they're going to create this whole new development. Yeah. And I was trying to do something very analytical, but I didn't really work out well.
Well, anyway.
It's hard to judge because I look at so many articles based on Arizona, Maricopa County.
I do too.
Phoenix versus our outside. And then I look at our entire United States. And when I'm doing the math in my head, I'm like, okay, this is what United States, in America is doing. This is what Arizona's doing. But not just Arizona. This is Maricopa County doing. This is each county. It gets aggressive. It
is challenging to bring you the information that we do every week. So hold on there. We're compiling things and bringing things together and trying to be as articulate as possible in a very concise manner. Right?
I think that,
or you can just give Ashley 2 purple hearts. I mean, she loves purple hearts. We love any hearts. I mean, whatever color you want to give us. But is there anything else, Miss Miller? We're on the last minute of the show today.
I think the biggest thing is...
biggest takeaway.
And I always say this is... Education.
Hashtag Morristown.
Well, now hashtag Douglas Ranch.
Hashtag Douglas.
Who knows? But reaching out and really analyzing who your sphere is, how you can be educated, and having faith that if you want to be a homeowner.
I mean, selecting the right agent does have a lot to do with it. Being educated has a lot to do with it, and really, I'm not a financial advisor in any way, but to sit down with somebody to kind of go through your finances and really kind of help you through some of these things. I mean, I can sit down or watch our Friday show. We talk about these things too, the Finance Friday. I mean, there's so many things to take into account, and it's challenging, especially when it's not with the right people in your life. And so hopefully we bring information to you guys. Hopefully we provide you with the insight that you can make a better decision for yourself. Because we're not financial advisors. We just,
we just want to be your cheerleader.
We're just your cheerleader. So I want to thank everybody for watching today. We come at you every Monday talking about the real estate market, what's going on in Phoenix, Morristown, Buckeye, anywhere in between Vegas and California, we're your one source for all of it. So we'll catch you guys next week. Rob Morales, our RCO Network, with Ashley Miller, Great American Title. We'll see you guys next week. See ya.